team. I just put the first bullet point on there because I really like to keep after, you know, our role as community development. And I just wanted to talk briefly and get your guys' input too. When it comes to community development, you know, what's the resident's perspective? What's the business perspective? If you had any input, I've got some thoughts, but what do you? I mean, you've seen it played, rolled out different ways, different places, right?
Yes.
I know I'm like a broken record. I keep bringing this up, but I do think it's a good thing to keep in mind why we're doing what we're doing. And can you just cover a couple of those things, like how you've seen it evolve at community?
You know, I guess I've seen it mostly from the standpoint of like economic development, housing or economic development. But I certainly think it could take in anything that furthers the community or develops the community, enhances the quality of life, you know, makes it a desirable place to live and work.
Yeah, I had similar points. Dave, did you have
Yeah,
anything?
that's pretty much what I see.
Okay. I had put quality of life, and I put this down maybe because I think it's on residents' minds. I don't know what role community development has in this, but it's something to keep in mind is a safe community is very important to it, but I don't know if community development plays a role in that other than make sure a sign doesn't fall on your head or, you know, something like that, you know, from a safety standpoint. But I know
Well,
that, go ahead.
Certain things, certain way of life kind of leads into a safer community. So, you know, walkable community.
Right, right.
Whether it's street lighting and that sort of thing.
Maybe the safety part, and also I put organized and well run. You know, I think that's something that could go across any of the committees. You know, are we doing the best we can with the money we have? Are we being responsible? So those, maybe there's certain things that it doesn't matter what committee it's a part of. And then from the other thing I had put down too was increase, and I struggle between maintain and increase property values. You know, there's decisions we can make that will, and it's a hard thing to judge, I'll be the first one to admit it, but increasing property value seems like, or at least maintaining property value seems to be, I would think, on people's mind that ties into the housing and the economic portion of it. And then, you know, I think it would be amiss not to mention the heritage part of Greenhills that goes with that as well. Because that's, you know, from a brand perspective, that's important aspect that we.
Sorry about that.
That's our, we just started. It's a, you know, it's an important aspect that other communities can't leverage like we can. Just to catch up, we just started. I like revisiting, you know, the purpose of community development. Some of the things we talked about is it's been primarily a housing economic role for other places. We brought up quality of life. And then I was mentioning that a safe community and organized, well-run, it would probably apply to any of the committees. You know, how well are we spending the dollars and being accountable. I had also noted that, you know, the best quality or best product for the lowest possible cost would be an overall thing I would hope we'd be shooting for. And then from a resident perspective, increase property values. How can we at least maintain, in some cases, even improve property value? What can we do from a community development standpoint? And then tying into that is, you know, other things we can leverage from a brand perspective, heritage that others can't, and other aspects. And then from a business perspective, I'm just trying to, and again, you know, feel free to adjust this, but from a business owner standpoint, if I put on those shoes, every business needs to be profitable. You know, if it's not profitable, most likely profitable in a big sense of the term, it's just a matter of time. And then I put sustainable, you know, it's one thing to be profitable, you know, like Troubadour will have a good Saturday night and that's great, but if he doesn't have good other days, and the same goes for the Butt Shack and other places. So that's some of the thoughts I had from a business perspective. Is there anything else from a business perspective you think, how it intersects with community development?
I would just say, I know it's kind of signage and business signage we'll talk about, but just stuff like that, how the community supports,
Okay.
you know, accessible, and visible.
I like that. It's like, how are we supporting our businesses?
Because if they can't find them and we don't allow ways for them to be found, then we
Right.
wouldn't be attractive for our business to come into.
Well, and another thing, maybe it might seem like a opposite of being positive, but another thing is, how can we keep the barriers low? You know, you see all the different states that fight for, you know, people and businesses. I'll look at the ads in the Business Courier or whatever, in like Michigan or something will say, hey, you can, the cost to do business is here lower, and quality of, or the processing steps are less, you know, but how can we be aware of not putting undue barriers on businesses?
And we're kind of uniquely marketed because our business district is our main road.
Right,
I mean,
right.
main road. It's not like you have to take too many turns once you get into Greenhills.
That's
You're there.
it. That's it. That's it. And I was thinking, I had heard that Glendale has had a lot of frustration because their town square is off the main road. So we do have, you know, we're one step better in having our business district right there.
Mhm.
Doesn't mean we still, you know, still have to advertise and do other things too. And then, any other thoughts on that before we move on? The new resident packet, all I had, Yvonne, was this tax breakdown, and that's what my call was about. It seems like there was more
Yeah,
to
we had
it.
this
Okay,
packet.
and you probably gave that to me. I
Okay.
didn't find it, but I'll look for it. and-
Okay, I can make you more copies, I didn't like keep making copies of
No,
it,
that's
but,
fine.
so we have this, but yeah, we talked at the last meeting to develop this piece.
Right, to support.
To put in here for
Okay.
people to know how their tax dollar is spent.
Sure.
We had talked about seeing if surrounding communities have similar comparisons, and we haven't had an opportunity
To
to
do
get into
that.
that yet.
Okay.
I was just glad we got that done.
You know what would be a nice visual
Mhm.
is then having this segment divided,
Compared.
what is in the general fund, you know,
Ray Karsten,
Okay.
you know, just kind of, you know how they do it, and
Mhm.
sometimes they have a section pulled out.
Right.
Having that section pulled out and then subdivided, just because some of it is specific levy, and so, you know, just because we're getting that amount doesn't mean all that amount can go towards police,
Right.
or all of it can go
Right.
towards,
we should be able to do that, create
Yeah.
one of those little inserts or something.
Yeah, just
that show-
yeah.
Yeah, great idea.
Then
Good.
why don't we
Right.
plan on reviewing an updated packet and where it stands, and let me know what you want from me on that.
Okay. All right, and our new brochure will be,
To be
there's,
included
yeah, we have a
with that.
one pager in here right now, but we will take that out
Okay.
and put that in. That's what it used to be, but now we have our nice brochure.
So, I'll roll right into the brochure. Only changes I made on this next printing, and the plan is, we're printing enough to distribute through the Postal Service, right? And you said it was a good price.
Really good.
Yeah.
They have a system, I forget what they call it, but for 17 cents an item, the delivery person will leave one with each mail.
yeah, is that the, I forget what it's called, but yeah, you just circle a distance and it's,
No addresses on it or
Yeah,
anything,
yeah.
right. And so, and this, all I did was I moved the logo, when it's folded, the logo was in the back, I moved it to the front, and then we changed it to property ownership, to property maintenance, so it's more inclusive if you're a renter, you're,
Right.
you know, thinking of those terms. I think that was your suggestion. And then I just added leaves. I didn't
Yeah,
know if there was
that's
any
good.
other information
That's really good.
there, but that's all that's changed, and that's been sent to the printer, and he thought that by the end of this week, those would be ready.
Great.
So that's, and that should be included in that packet. Okay, and then the next 2 points, Yvonne, you had mentioned when you're ready.
Yeah, I wanted to check out the back.
I didn't,
I know.
I didn't go through, it was the same as the other one, so I just, I'm always, whenever I'm printing two-sided, lots of times I'm like flipping around, it's
And
like
you
printing on both sides and.
And then you forget
Yeah.
to say flip on short side instead of long side. And, yeah.
You thinking, get over that. Large
I-
business
I'm
owner
over it.
meeting, did you wanna cover that?
Actually, it's, that was like multifamily owners.
Okay.
That's what I'm thinking of, to have them together. To
Sure.
review, okay.
Can I jump back to new resident packet?
Mhm.
What info, I haven't seen everything that's in there. Can I just?
Would you like to take this copy?
Yes.
Go ahead, because I can do more. I just made a note, I was gonna scan it to you guys too, but I'll be happy to.
Okay,
We also include the most current issue of the journal.
okay. Yeah, this would be
in each one.
just. 'Cause
Are
Lots
most-
of individual pages, but it is a lot of
No,
information.
that's
so-
fine. Are those Word documents, you know?
most
Most
of
of
them would-
them are, yeah.
Yeah,
Cause, just having some,
consistency.
yeah, no, I was just thinking of some, it's hard for me to know what else I think should be in there if I don't know what's in there.
Right.
Yeah,
Um,
go ahead and take that one.
I was gonna say, I might even put a pool pass and a golf,
We have
pass.
the, pulling the golf at the back, that way it's in the country.
and then that's the one to be replaced. And this would be,
Building, when do you need a permit?
then the most recent, that's good, of the concerts.
Oh, yeah, that's right, we'll put the
Yeah.
updated list for the
Well-
concerts in there when it's
Yeah, it's
summer.
2016, so it's fine. And then, the park talks, maybe put the flyer for the park,
Oh,
park
yeah.
talks in there.
Good deal. Great. I've also thought about maybe doing like the memorial tree program and the heritage tree program.
And then, something about the community days at the pool and the, Pioneer Day and the Harvest Fest and the Light Up Greenhills, just maybe make an event
Event.
flyer that can be updated every year, just, you know.
Sounds excellent, yeah.
Um,
And include the Oktoberfest,
Yep,
Thing.
the OR,
whatever
yeah.
they call it these days. The August Fest.
Right.
And then if there's anything ahead of times that we set up, like if we do have an annual cleanup or anything like that, that we set at the beginning of the year.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe it should be, hey, these are some items we need to set at the beginning of the year. I'd even say put trick or treat.
Mhm.
I know some places you'll start getting calls now, when you plan on holding trick or treat, and it's like, on Halloween,
Right.
between 6 and 8. Well, there's a football game, or there's this and that. So if you put it out in January, at least you can say, well, it's been out there.
Right, right, right.
So,
Again, though, would that be, are we talking new resident packet or a packet that, is there a requirement or a need for us on a packet that's just an informational
I think that
packet for residents?
a new resident slash the new resident packet could be just an
Okay.
informational packet as well, but some of the stuff should also be on the website in some
Mhm.
Right,
kind of
which
format.
often it,
Mhm.
Yeah.
it is, or we do one calls as well, so,
Mhm.
but no, that's good.
Yeah, but, you need this to get to people so they know to do the one call.
Mhm.
Right, is there something about the one call in it,
Yes.
in there? It'll be part of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on there, plus we have, it was
Okay.
the 4
there's-
different ways to
Yeah, I saw that.
stay informed near the front.
And then, I didn't see it, but something about the schools.
Yeah, we had talked about actually listing like local options.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like,
No, you're
I
absolutely
mean,
right.
I think having something in there like, here's Wentwood School District, the grades they have, how you would enroll.
Well, maybe contact information.
Yeah, and then here's the other options besides public school.
Mhm.
just because when a new person moves in, if they're not moving from the Greenhills Forest Park area, they might not know some of the information.
And at one time when we had more businesses in the shopping center, some businesses used to give us
Oh, something to hand out.
certificates.
Yeah.
Yeah. We thought of that and they tried to do something. I was also gonna include at least a list of our
Well,
businesses
yeah,
and people would know what we have
And I'm
locally.
working on that as well, so
Yeah.
it could go serve two purposes.
And but that's just without really looking at it. Another thing to go in the events is the turkey raffle and the Easter egg from the fire department and any other of the other annual things that the fire department puts on. Those would be nice things, especially if those are something we know at the beginning of the year.
I'm wondering if we don't wanna put it in a booklet form, you know? It doesn't have to be fancy, but if you give me the Word documents, it might be, I'm just a little bit concerned when it's pinned together like that and then the type sizes are all different. It'll look more
Mhm.
cohesive, like well, the only challenge, it's easier to swap stuff out in this
Yeah.
format.
I know, what we could do is, just a folder, you know, a pocket
Yeah.
folder.
Yeah.
You put some things on the left, some things on the right, and then you can just swap those
That's
out.
a good idea, too, yeah.
But the biggest thing would be, consistent look, you know. But that was, and then, the folder, we could just put a nice sticker on the front of the folder that just had, you know,
Mhm.
and get those separate, so if we don't have to,
I'll look at options
So.
for that.
okay. Now I'm happy. Now
You-
back to number 4.
Number 4 is Yvonne's. You
Uh,
said multifamily.
family.
Oh, yeah, great. And we would have a lot to discuss with them, but mostly code enforcement issues and just making sure they're up to, I would envision maybe twice a year we could do something like that more often if they would like to, but just, you know,
In
kind
the
of
spring,
inform
fall.
them. And I think they'd also like to network a little bit more between themselves, so I
No,
forget where.
I thought we had quite a range of owners that might be interested in that and some that might not.
Yeah, possible, but you know, if they're not.
The only reason I'm mentioning
offer
that,
it, but-
well, I'm just wondering if we shouldn't back it up with written documentation that gets sent to them if they can't make it
Oh,
or
yeah.
or refuse to
That
make
would be
it.
a great idea.
And some of it would be good, just in general for, since they're the ones that landlords, getting them updated new resident packets.
Mhm.
Say, hey, whenever you have someone move in, here's,
Mhm.
you know, let us know and we'll get
Well,
these to
aren't
your
they still
people.
supposed to notify us
Yeah.
when they?
They are, yeah.
Just say,
Some
you
might
know.
not even know that, some of the newer ones especially.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying giving them a lot of copies, just give them one like, hey, this is
Mhm.
the information we give your new tenants, just so they're aware of what we're telling people. And so if they tell them something different than what we have, we at least can say, but they know because we gave them this.
Mhm.
You know, I know sometimes they'll say, well, so-and-so said, but you can say, look, documentation, this is what we have told you, this is what we have, this is what we're telling your tenants,
Mhm.
so.
And of course, some of those landlords are in California and they've never even seen the house they're renting.
So we probably can't expect them to be there, but we're gonna
No,
send them the
right.
info anyway.
We've got a little bit of that across the board now with Steve being in Miami.
Hey, I never thought I'd be a landlord, and I'm a landlord, so.
But you're not in a different state.
No.
You're a little bit easier to contact.
A little bit closer.
Okay, real estate mailing, do you wanna cover that?
Yeah, that's gonna be something we do have to think about, what kind of format do we want it to go out in, and this is properties are starting to sell, prices are starting to go up, it's all really positive, but I think we need to take advantage of that and, promotional piece for ourselves. And again, I guess we have to decide what we feel is important to be talking about, maybe it's some kind of something like the new resident packet, but in a smaller version, just so the real estate agents understand what we have, what we offer to people.
I know,
Things like that.
commercial properties usually do a 8.5 by 11 or front and back at the most of informational stuff about a piece of property.
Mhm.
So maybe it'd be something worthwhile sitting down with David Adams or someone else who's a real estate agent and say, what would they want, in what format would they want it in? Cause we can make the nicest thing, and if it's not something they're ever gonna look at,
Yeah,
that
so
it's
true.
not worth the time and effort, but maybe sitting down with someone like David Adams and asking what they use, what would be, cause I can see something like this, you know, that information.
And you remember I was talking to you about, I had heard rumblings about somehow something was calculated against Greenhills and it was throwing stuff off even though it wasn't accurate.
Right, and that's pretty old information.
Okay,
And
but what
you-
was that?
Well, I can't remember, David, there was a certain type of, was it an FHA, there's a certain type of appraisal that if it's done, it can, as a comparison, it's only good for 6 months though, so what, I mean, and
It impacted us
It's-
selling some because the FHA appraised properties lower, and so people, even though some property was worth more, they couldn't get a loan for what people wanted to sell the property for. And of course, they sent somebody from from this area
Okay.
to do the appraisals and didn't know anything about
Yeah.
anything.
Okay.
So the government units have been appraised real low, and I don't know if
Is
they
that-
changed any, but
Is that whole situation changed, or do we
I
need to talk
hope,
to
but we don't-
realtors to find out?
well, I guess we could, I mean, it's certainly not an issue with our units any longer, because
Okay.
it's been years now.
I thought it was
since
more
we've been
amongst the,
doing this,
and I
but-
don't know if David Adams said it, but I thought it was amongst the realtors. It gave us a little bit of a.
Well, and that's why, my experience is sometimes they get something in their head, and then that's what they hold forever.
Right.
So unless we give them fresh information
Right.
and change that, they may always, hey, that's the place where, that's
Well,
like
and so my
history
question
now,
is,
so-
what can we do to give them fresh information?
Well, and that's what I'm thinking, some type of information, I'm not, maybe it isn't even a mailing, maybe it's
Okay.
a meeting.
Okay.
We had a couple of those early on, not specifically with real estate agents, but I think they could be.
Sure.
We were, kind of promoting home
Well,
buying.
and that way
Had
we could
some
also
show
get some
up, so-
feedback from them and
Yeah.
see what
Right,
they're feeling
and answer their
thinking.
questions,
Yeah.
maybe they get questions from people who are looking at property here, and then we'll know, where we need
If
to
they're giving
focus.
accurate answers. Or-
Right.
Okay.
So that really may
Maybe,
be the easier, is to set up some type of meeting.
and I would think most people would know about it, but if somebody was from out of state who went to our website for some reason,
Mhm.
have a link on our website to the multiple listing, and or there's now a listing of like homes for sale by owner or something like
Oh,
that.
that's good.
that I've
The
seen.
MLS or I've seen that as well. I
Yeah.
can't-
Cause I know that I've seen some for sale by owner signs, not in the numbers that we used to have them, but.
That's good.
Yeah, that's really good, we can do that. So, yeah, we'll work that idea a little bit more, and,
Okay.
I'll report back.
Great. And then let's talk, you wanted, Melanie, to put business signage on, channel letters, logos versus boxes.
Yeah, I just think that's, community development, sometimes we should weigh in on some of that stuff
Right, and we
too.
did last meeting.
Yeah. I just didn't know where we were at with that, and just kind of getting an update from.
We had planning commission last
Last
night,
night.
and they will be reconvening again. They didn't make any decisions, but we're asking the attorney a couple of legal issues that came up. But there was a comment about this signage, one or two, I have to remember, that should we be requiring just channel signs? I don't wanna speak for the planning commission, but first of all, let's start looking like we're in this century, and,
Right.
seriously,
No, that's
we are at a critical point right now. We
Yeah.
have an opportunity to change that building, and if we just keep letting the same old, it will continue to look just how it looks now. I think
Right.
we have to take some steps forward.
And I would agree with that. I've noticed, like, if you take a look at the dialysis place that's across from Kroger, brand new, they have a vinyl sign up. And the vinyl signs tend to fade rather quickly and look very temporary. I just don't think that's a good solution. I tried, my computer was giving me an error message for some reason, but I tried to take a picture of some of the signage over here. I do think that one thing the channel letters do is similar to this. It helps make it more legible. As you know, Brentwood and other places, that's their approach. I know that there's additional cost. I don't know if there's things that we can do to help along with that. It's just for legibility purposes. I'm trying to think what other reasons. That you don't have the fading that you have with a vinyl sign. If you look at Creamy Whip's vinyl sign around the front, now that's quite faded. I think it's just low quality. And I think it goes back to that property value piece of increasing property value. And even like if you look at these, it's stuff like this that I did talk briefly to Steve about, where former signs, you've got the holes there, you've got old brackets, even just how the facade is, you know.
You can't read that at all.
Well, and you know, that's one of the points that came up last night, and you can't even see the signage, and you know,
Plus
I mean,
it's
look
three
at it.
different
You
sizes.
have to
Oh,
be
yeah.
almost
Yeah.
right up to that to see it. Of course, it's not going to show up on Winton Road,
Right.
Now-
which I think the lettering you're talking about will.
Oh, definitely.
People will see that in a heartbeat.
And then do we, this is how unfamiliar, do we have how much surface area it's allowed to take up based on, however,
Usually, most of the, especially right now, with who's in there now, most of the time, they err on the small side because of probably cost.
okay.
We haven't had is the other problem of someone's trying to make a billboard out of it.
Well,
But
I was
preventing
gonna
that
say,
is good.
some of the problem could be, even though it's based on the size, the Learning Garden Academy, just like Riley's, takes up so much percentage of it, so their sign can be huge, and then someone that just has a smaller sign,
Right,
you
right.
kinda lose some of the uniformity because of some of the allowances.
And I do have,
I want businesses to have their unique in their own marketing and everything else, but sometimes it's looks kind of hodgepodge without some kind of, guidance.
I think the value, you know, we talked about as you come down the corridor, there's just a huge value difference. Trying to think here.
yeah, I hate you're right, not having them fixed.
Looks like a machine gun shot it. You know, and I guess the other thing we have to think about just overall is objective. You know, obviously there's safety. We always have to be concerned with that, no matter what the signage is. We have to do what we need to keep, you know, keep residents and those that are visiting safe. There's the function, which we talked about, legibility. You know, I personally think it's much more attractive and gives it a lot more presence. And if a company's not able to afford the sign, I'm not sure they're gonna last long as a business anyways. And the channel signs, I did talk to Matt at AdPro. They have become, the whole internet thing has made a lot of this stuff a lot more competitive than it used to be. When we were getting quotes for the Troubadour, it didn't take much to get a very, very low quote compared to what was initially out there. So I think the quality is, and the value is a very important feature for that shopping center that's lacked it immensely. But that's my take on it.
Yes, and also not just the signage, but to require lighting. I mean, I'm sure that.
Are we gonna, are we requiring a lighting piece? I would think you would want it, but,
Yeah, I can't remember. I can do it back.
yeah.
I remember being in there, whether it was required to be lighted. I think so.
I think so.
The other thing,
Within or
well, what
rear,
we
I
should
thought
probably,
so. I don't
and
remember.
what I wanted to do, and I feel like we could, you know, we could easily spend an hour discussing this. But I thought, you know, we really should talk about the pros and cons of it and say, okay, if you're on the back and you're selling glass block, and you're gonna make me have required lighting back there versus on the front. I understand the fail-safe way to do it is everybody has to have a lit sign.
Mhm.
But obviously on the back of the shopping center, I don't know how important that is from those guys that are just using the space as a workspace and not necessarily a retail space. Does that make sense?
Right. I mean, because anything we say also applies to our neighbors, our Alex, or, you know.
Right. So we do have to take a broad look at it and,
Mobile home.
yeah. I don't even know, their sign, is it lit?
They have
Yeah,
brown down.
I think it is.
Okay.
And I guess would that include,
Elvis? Or no?
yes, I mean, it would, and
Yeah.
I was thinking Spoils Field are anything around there,
That's
our
Forest
business, or
Park.
that's Forest Park? It's hard for me when they're right next to each other to go, okay, which is which?
Right, and I know Alois has a new sign, looks really, really nice, but I don't know if that's lit. You know, we have to
It
look at
has
what
to
we.
be, I
Yeah,
mean,
I think
we have-
it's lit like spotlights.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I'm not
and that's-
remembering, but I know it's a
yeah.
new one, I can't remember for sure.
Yeah. But there's no doubt, we have to look at are we putting a reasonable burden on people? Are there other ways to offset that burden?
Well, and again, what we hear so much is the ability to signage, they need signage, so I would think something that shows up really good is to their advantage.
Well, I think so too.
A good cost, so.
I think
a good
it's worth it.
expense,
I mean,
worthwhile
that
expense.
is your first thing you see typically when you're coming down there.
yeah, and I know typically we think about the front of the shopping center, but we have to think about everything, and
Yeah. This was on my mind the first time we did this, and for some reason, I thought that we weren't able to require this, and then, now I heard that we can, so I would have done it the first time, or pushed for it the first time. The other things, any other thing you wanna talk about there? So they're gonna talk with Jeff Forbes, is their next step, the cleaning?
Yeah, I'm getting some information, and it's not on that topic,
Okay.
actually, there were two
Okay.
other issues that we're getting clarification on, and we'll reconvene and they'll decide what they wanna do.
I mean, very similar to our street signs, I mean, it's gonna be extra cost for us to do street signs that replicate what was here before,
Mhm.
but the value to the community, as a whole, just making us look like we're worth being around, I think it's very similar.
And weren't we also gonna talk about, at one point we talked about kind of entry signs as well, for the village, updating those.
Yeah, we did,
Yeah,
we did.
Started that.
And
yeah.
so I would say, the entry, it's probably other business, sorry, kind of matching the,
See, that's what concerns me about requiring lighting, or a blanket thing that requires lighting. Maybe
but-
if it's retail, or if we
an
can
entry
do
sign
that.
is different because it's not attached to a building, but it should still have some kind of spotlight, a spotlight
Yeah.
is lighting.
Right, but we don't have the ability, I don't think, over there by the church where our one sign is as you come down Winton.
But it's
I'm
not
just- I'm
attached,
just-
you're right,
I'm
but
just
it's not
saying-
attached to a building. It's kind of like a street sign.
Oh, I understand. I'm just saying that we have to be careful making a requirement that we ourselves cannot even fulfill. So,
Yeah, and the thing is, with businesses, there's different requirements for signage on a building versus signage,
okay,
on their land.
Freestanding.
right.
And we
Yeah.
just don't have any
Do we-
businesses
do we have
besides
that called
Mobilecom.
We
Well,
ground mount.
Alois is another one.
Yeah.
We have regulations for ground mount and pole
Okay,
signs
right,
and all
right.
that.
So the biggest thing is for us to make sure we meet those, or make sure for our signage,
Sure.
but
Right.
those are
But it is
different.
a different kind of signage.
Yeah.
so you-
Yeah, in talking to Steve, and I don't know, where he's gonna fall out, we went through, I gave him a brief list of, from my vantage point, things that would make a difference, from a value perception, and that's why I had these pictures and sending in, because I was working, with him. The facade is just very important. You look at other places that have businesses that change out, and I'm thinking Brentwood, I'm thinking of places like that. And when they take another sign down, they do a very good job of not leaving the footprint of who was there before.
Except I will tell you that for the longest time, I can't remember what it is, and this is Tri-County, the Mitchell's, beauty.
Right?
I remember being able to see whatever it was before,
Yeah.
for I would say years. I remember thinking, why didn't they just paint
Paint
that?
over it,
Yeah, or, you know.
Yeah.
And the problem is then you end up painting one area and that one, you can see the rectangle of where that one area is and you just have to do the whole thing, but I remember for, I would say probably 5 years running, I remember thinking that every single time I saw it, like, why don't they just fix that? Why don't they just
Yeah.
fix that?
I can drive you crazy. Anything else on the signage at this point? How about, let's dive into the greenbelt piece.
Okay. Well, let's see.
I had, as you can see in the outline, just talking about, my thinking originally was that it's got an inherent problem in it. There's things that have taken place already, and without paying for surveying, you know, it just opens a lot of issues on who's done what, and where we stand with that. In my opinion, it's easy to say at this point, I wasn't in their situation, but I would have never, ever gone that route. Maybe that was their only choice. I know that they sold off, right? Was that during your time at all? or-
No, it was before.
Okay. But,
Was it eight?
Was it the
50s,
Was it in the
60s?
50s when they did that?
Yeah,
so,
50s, 60s.
to me, that was the beginning of a problem, because obviously when I moved in here, and we can get into notifying people, and yes, there are properties that I guess, you know, you could buy a piece of property and have some of it zoned business and some of it residential. I realize that. I was just thinking, is there a way to fix this so it's not a perpetual problem for the village? And I know you had brought up some concerns about what if somebody starts chaining pieces together. But was that based on selling them a piece of property? Like, are you saying that if somebody didn't want a piece of property that's directly behind their house, kind of thing? Do you remember?
I remember it was, I know if you chained them, it got them access possibly to more of it, but
Yeah, now most of them are pretty tiny little pieces
Do
along
you
here.
know
In
what the
fact,
sizes are?
well, I think some of them are no more than 50
40 or
feet,
50
yeah,
by
deep, yeah,
whatever the width of the lot
their
is.
lot.
Okay.
And I think, David, you may remember better than me, I think there's only one instance that I can think of where somebody actually might own a little piece that goes like behind. And I
Yeah.
don't remember if it's over here or here, but somehow I think it's over here. Although there could be one on Bayham where
We
where they
have,
own, you
yeah,
know, a
we
little
have
bit
this
more
guy
house
that bought
behind.
at sheriff's sale that owns all this up to here, then that's owned by an individual, then he owns some, then individual, and then he comes around and owns some more.
Well, one thing, the whole purpose of this is to have a dialogue, and in my mind, when I was thinking about it, I was thinking about these little parcels. I wasn't, you know, that kind of amount of green space wasn't in my thinking, like, hey, is there a way to solve this?
cause
and-
that's a significant amount.
Right,
These,
right.
you're right.
So and if it's an all or nothing kind of thing, maybe it makes no sense. I'm not even sure it does make sense. I know it's easily thrown, it's a touchy topic.
Yeah, even these become bigger.
True. I mean, but is there other things in the zoning that would preclude them from doing something back there?
I mean, if you look at this, they're pretty much the same size as the lot that their houses are on.
No, I know. I mean,
Yeah, we'd have to look at the dimensions, I mean, the thing that hits me is access. You know, is somebody gonna give up their piece of property so
But could
everybody
they
can
build
get
if-
what kind of width?
could they
Like,
build
you know,
another house?
I think it'd be pretty tough.
Yeah, right.
Cause first you have the size of the house, and you have,
The size
right
wise,
away
it can
or
be done.
road.
I mean, look at it this way, let's say I own this piece of this house, and I end up, and then I own this one too. So I
Right.
buy this one, this one, this one, and this one, and I tear down this house, and now I can build 4 houses back
Right,
there.
no, and that's the kind of thing.
Or just not even tear down the house, just give an easement from my house to.
Well, there has to be enough clearance, setback clearance to do that, right?
For
To have a
easement.
drive by the house, if those houses are already running side to side.
Well, we have an
Yeah.
ordinance that says that a driveway has to be so wide
Right.
for access to something.
Right, and here, my
But
my
these are
thinking.
big and deeper.
No, no
Those,
doubt,
I
no
don't
doubt.
think anything can be done on those. These just
Sure.
end up being
And it,
significant.
I think, what I like about this is I think it should be talked about. The nice thing is, there's nothing we can do. Without a vote from the community, we can't do anything. It might make no sense whatsoever. I'm just looking at it as, is there a way to resolve this
Right.
long-term, without setting a trap for, other quirky things, people buying a long strip of land?
Yeah, and I mean, we could certainly take a look at some instances along there. First, some people probably have consolidated them by now, so it's a single parcel, even though half's greenbelt, half's residential.
Right, well, the
There's
county-
all sorts of
county
issues.
Has started doing that, right?
Yeah, they're
Because we run
eliminating
into
on their
some people-
mapping. They're
Okay.
still there, but on their mapping, they're taking the line out.
But is
So-
that official? I mean, they can take it out, it could be negligence,
I don't know. It's kind of scary.
Yeah, because the person buys the property and doesn't know they've got a
Right,
green
right.
belt.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so we could look at it, comparing it to setbacks and requirements for development, right?
What I think we should do is do the very best we can of understanding the facts and what could be done, not a sort of could be done, but what could be done, and role play out what this, a decision like this would entail.
Or what we can see, like, can we see cement pads versus a shed? I mean, what's a fence
and
versus?
how does that work with, I thought that maybe it wasn't this community, it could have been the one I came from. If I pour a cement pad for a shed in my backyard, I'm taxed on that versus if I don't have a cement pad, is that true?
I don't know about that.
It would be an improvement, I guess,
Okay.
but I would imagine it would be a taxable improvement.
I don't know, I just think we should ask the question, if there's something, if it is too convoluted, and I know it's so easy to throw it in an extreme, going, oh, we're trying to get rid of the green belt. Well, that's not true even remotely. But is there a way to solve this problem that I wish never existed in a long-term format? And what does that entail? So I guess we run scenarios, different places. This is unusual and huge. These are larger than this. When I originally was thinking about it, I was thinking on those terms. Somebody's got 10 feet in the back.
Yeah,
you
I
know.
mean, as I said, those are just, whereas this is like almost,
It's almost double the lot.
they were looking at future development, and I'm guessing that those is when they first did that, they were looking at possible future development when they created that in the 1930s,
No, that wasn't
Or
done
that was
until
sold.
the
No.
60s.
60s, because, I mean, those are the exact same dimensions as the
Right.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
It's
I
mirrored.
remember
Again,
from the
if they're
letters,
trying to raise
they
money, they're
purposely
selling.
surveyed that and divided it that way to sell it to those people. That wasn't like
Oh.
pre-existing. They did
They were
that
doing
to
it
sell
to
it
raise
to get
money.
money. Yeah.
This was all a raise money.
It's
And
very
that's what
intentional.
what he approached the people over here. Hammond approached those people too about buying it, and a lot of them didn't. And of course, we've discussed, this guy bought it at sheriff's sale, bidding against the village. Then his interpretation of our greenbelt zoning is, and it's would no doubt be a court battle, but
Similar to the
his
churches.
he could put a campground there.
Right.
So he can build cabins, or he can put pads in and have campers come in there. And so all he needs is access, and he
Well, aren't we
talked to
changing
some people.
something? I thought we were taking steps to
We
change
were,
that.
in addition to the map change, we were proposing the wording change. Yeah.
Okay, so that would not be a possibility.
Right.
Is there, and also, is there a way to to stop people from doing construction on that? Or does it have to stay the same in order to do that?
Currently,
Well-
they can't do construction on.
No,
that.
I know, I'm not
Right,
talking about
and
current.
I thought that's why you wanted me to look at some different scenarios to see if that would even be, how would that be, what would
Right.
it look like?
Right, or is there a way to stop it from
Mhm.
happening?
Right.
I guess get a drone and fly the area frequently. Because a lot of what's happened on all the greenbelt, where there's a shed or a fence or something like that,
Playground,
you
yeah.
don't see it
Right.
from the
Well,
road
and-
unless you go into somebody's backyard.
So if we, the other thing I'm struggling with is, we're trying to enforce it on individuals now, and I'm sure that they are pointing to other places where it hasn't been enforced, right?
Right.
And so then it's like, if we're gonna stay in this scenario, why wouldn't we be enforcing it everywhere? I know we weren't part of it, but
We
I'm
have
just.
to know about it to enforce it.
So that's what I'm getting to, so
Yeah.
to know about it, then we have to pay for surveying.
Well, not just that, to know, I would say to know about it, we would have to, almost have to be complaint driven, because we can't get there.
Right.
Legally.
We
I
need
mean-
to get a right of entry from the property owner to
Yeah,
go on it and
we
survey
can't,
it.
we cannot go on there. I mean, I guess we could hike through the woods this way.
Well, I don't know,
And
I
they
mean, I don't know
they
what's.
have no deed restrictions, so they could tell us to just forget it.
Who's they?
That whoever owns that property, I mean, there's
Right.
nothing, they're not violating a deed restriction.
Well, I'm just saying,
Is-
let's say that this house right here has a cement pad and a shed in the green belt.
We'd have to prove that if we
Right,
wanna
and
try
then
and take
how would we
action
go
against
about
them.
proving that?
I feel we have to survey it to prove that they are in the piece of green belt that's.
And can we
Can
survey
we-
it?
Not
How
without their
could we do
permission.
that without, getting on their property?
Or their neighbor's permission, because you
Okay.
could survey their neighbor's.
Yeah, I don't think, well, I don't know how we would do that.
Well, so I'm just trying to understand, it's a very convoluted situation where some places we can't enforce it. True, I mean, unless, or, it doesn't
mean,
sound like it, if we can't have access.
If it's complaint based and the neighbor is giving you access to their
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 property.
property, you can see it on
Okay,
the violator's property. But unless a neighbor is telling us about it, we can't.
the drone thing is not an actual. No, seriously, I mean,
I mean,
to me, it sounds like we're splitting hairs. If someone's violating that, if someone's violating it, they're violating it. It seems like a huge loophole that I can just say, you can't step on my property and you can't do anything about it. How's that work? I don't know. Have a meth lab back there, I don't know. Obviously,
But-
they have a search warrant.
we would, I mean, if we had reasonable suspicion that they were breaking the law back there, we would have access to it, but I would say a zoning violation is probably not strong enough to give you access onto someone's property.
Okay, and that makes sense, that makes sense. My thing.
And you look at the aerial photograph, and there's no way
To tell
you can
who's in the
tell.
trees. That's
because of
because
all
it's
the
a
trees.
summer photograph.
And then also, even on those photographs, that they do have the lines in them that the county or whoever puts in them,
Mhm.
they are not, the line, if you look at it, the fine print is like, these are estimates, these aren't
Right, right,
actual.
right.
They could be off plus or minus
Mhm.
5 feet or
Sure.
whatever, so it's hard to.
So my thinking, and right or wrong, my thinking originally was, if you buy a piece of property, it just seems so left of center that I would be able to buy part of the park and call it my own. You know what I mean? Or part of a green belt. I usually think, it's my property, as long as I stay within the zoning, I can do what I want with it. and it's a quirky thing that I've got 10 feet, I can't do anything with that.
And maybe that's something to talk about at the real estate meeting, if we meet with them, like, hey, what are you seeing out there? What do you guys see?
But
What-
even if they say they see it, we don't have access to actually prove it.
I
right,
mean,
legally.
maybe it's, if anyone moves into that area, and along with the new resident packet, they also get the letter that says, oh, by the way, part of your property is greenbelt, here are the restrictions on the greenbelt property.
Yeah, no,
It's up to you to figure out which part that is.
I understand. I'm just saying
Yeah.
that as a property owner, I would think, I would not have some quirky thing like that, is all. And it doesn't look like there's a clean way to do it, either to get in it or get out of it. But we can run some scenarios
I
and
mean,
see.
Unless it is, we decide that it's something that we wanna look at getting rid of, and then do it by area, cause this little area is, I don't know if that's owned, that looks like one piece instead of 3 different pieces, if that's owned by different people, or if it's owned by one person. Or Hayden, this little, there's a.
That might be owned by the school district. I don't know about that little piece there.
Yeah, I mean, if,
Yeah, I
would we
think
do it section by section? Like, is that, what about those?
Right,
That's,
but again, if we, here, I don't know if you could fit anything, so I don't know if there's an
Yeah, that's
advantage.
right.
I wouldn't go to the community and say, hey, we've got like 10 houses here that have 10 extra feet. If it doesn't apply, and again, all I'm doing, I'm thinking on one end is the property ownership piece, and usually when you buy a piece of property, under normal circumstances, you wouldn't encounter this. And it doesn't mean, we then have a right to inform people on a regular basis, you know, even if we send something out every other year that says, just a reminder, here's the situation. Because it isn't fair to move in and find out,
and,
you know, without knowing, how do you,
and if there's a fence, if we know of something and, you know, it's been grandfathered, you kind of state, and if it ever comes down, you can't put it back in.
right,
You know,
right.
if there's any kind of you know,
And I'm thinking the real estate agents,
it's just frustrating
probably
that they
what
combine the
happens,
deeds.
yeah, they're, all they're doing with their real estate stuff is they're indicating, oh, it's a residential zone, what they need to be at that point is being
Breaking.
knowledgeable enough to say, oh, it's residential and
Was
it's
that
part
part
of
of this
Greenbelt.
meeting too?
Could be,
Yeah.
yeah, that's, so keeping them informed might be,
So,
although they might wanna turn their head away.
so, and let me
Something
just
we can do
finish
that
my
way.
one thought. One was like, okay, wearing the mindset, if I buy a piece of property, I wouldn't be expecting something quirky like this, especially if I didn't know about it. Then the other thing is consistency, which, this is seems like a tough, almost impossible thing to be consistent about. Either we enforce it or we don't enforce it, you know? And I'm not saying we shouldn't have a middle ground, but it also puts us in a tricky spot. I don't know what Jeff Forbes, you know, thinks about that, but, you know, they could easily say, hey, I know so-and-so on this place and they built this, why can't I build something? You know, and how do you
And
deal with
something,
that?
you can set a policy that for greenbelt violations, we, it's complaint driven and, you know, and leave it at that. I mean,
You know, cause they're not gonna have any more proof than we have.
But
that the
even if
other
it's
ones-
complaint driven, I'm
If-
not sure we can do anything about it. We still would have to have access to the property.
but if it's complaint driven, if I'm complaining about my neighbor, I would like Greenhills on my property to take pictures, then you do have access.
Well, so help me understand this, but does it have to come from a neighbor? Can I walk through the woods one day and
You-
have 5 complaints?
You could do that, but the problem is then you're right, we wouldn't have access.
Right.
But usually a complaint.
And even if I'm a neighbor, I have access to one side. I don't know if, you know what I mean? I don't know. This is very similar to when I brought up the tennis courts down there. It's like either we need to care for them or get rid of them, but being stuck in the middle was not a good option. This one, maybe we're just stuck in the middle. I don't know. But I just thought we should be talking about it and making a choice, even though it's not the cleanest, possible, not the cleanest. But I would run some scenarios and just see if they in fact can't do anything because of other restrictions, we should know.
Or if there's a way to contact the county and say, hey, stop combining the deeds, they're the way, you know,
Yeah, we have,
I mean,
I don't know, yeah, you've heard.
Um,
They've made so many changes down there, and their system is getting more screwed up by the million, quite
Yeah,
frankly,
I
it's
mean-
really a shame.
and part of it
So
can
good.
be press release, county, I don't know, something saying, this is the way it is, we have never changed it, I don't know why it has been changed elsewhere, or,
That's not helping us at all,
Yeah.
you know?
No, it isn't.
Well-
And Dusty doesn't take kindly to any kind of criticism whatsoever.
Well, that's a fault of theirs then. Anything else you guys have on this, or at this point? I mean, do you have any?
Not on that one, no, I'll run scenarios.
Okay.
Anything else you want me to do on that?
No, I just thought we should talk about it
Okay.
and not pretend it, not that we were, but just, it's one of those things, it's like percolating, it's like, where are we, what can we do, not do, what's legal, what's not legal? I mean, there's a lot of facets to this. I kind of would like to pull something together that summarizes as much as possible our current state and verify that it's filled with facts. You know what I mean? Just so that we
Yeah.
could have a place of action to go from there.
especially, and I will tell you that one of the things when I encounter people who don't know anything about Greenhills, one of the things I always say is an interesting fact about Greenhills is that we're completely surrounded by greenbelt. So, I mean, that's one of the things, I mean, of the 3 greenbelt communities, we're the only one that is. So,
Yeah.
I find it,
And I don't,
You
to
know.
me, the other thing is I don't wanna blur that we're not talking about Greenbelt, as a whole. You know,
Right.
No one's talking about changing that. Can you email me this or can I
Sure.
have that?
Either one.
I think it's good to discuss it and see what makes sense. And like I said, the safety net is we can do nothing without the community, whoever the majority of the community is as a whole, thinks that, they have to vote on it. Other things, other business? Good. Well, thank you. Kind of a ambitious list. We'll keep after it.
Yvonne, what's the Greenbelt problem?
I'm sorry?
What's the Greenbelt problem? What's the problem?
I guess in a nutshell,
Just the one?
some
person?
people have built on it
No,
when,
more than one?
or so. Yeah, you can do that.
Thank you.
And like I mentioned, with the one parcel, which is a fairly large parcel, I forgot how many acres, is that 9 acres or something, I can't
All the big one.
remember. Yeah.
The camper,
The camper,
campground.
Yeah.
So a speculator that buys property up at sheriff's sale purchased it and then went around to various neighbors, talking to them about access, talking also about selling some pieces to them.
Pretty
And,
good?
and then his argument with the village was,
and
he, reading our ordinance, he
I would
certainly
just say,
can go in there
like
and make
next
a camper.
other business
Now,
that
we
at
would
the
then
meeting, I
ended
wouldn't
up in a
mind,
lawsuit. He hasn't
having it being a community
done anymore
development
because he got
meeting,
into some
community
other
meeting
problems
with
in some
the
other
real estate
areas.
agents having an official meeting
But
or
that still is
Okay.
so that
hanging
you
out
both can
there.
be there and.
How long ago did you buy that property?
15 years, maybe.
I just wonder if,
And then-
He's
there's a
really doing
way,
anything about it.
Huh?
He's just talking about it, he ain't really done anything.
Right, and he may
Real
be just
estate,
bluffing, but
just
he still holds the property.
And-
He's
and
still
to me-
paying his
With
taxes
realtors,
on
you're
it.
saying?
Yeah, it could just be
So-
David Adams, or it can be,
I mean, he
But
came
there-
back to the
you know,
village and said,
something-
I'll sell it to the village,
Is
and
there
I think he
realtors?
wanted like
So it's just
something.
5 or 6
Something.
times.
Blackmail.
You mean
Blackmail.
for our
us.
limitations?
yeah.
You know what I would do is just
And
go
then-
around and anybody who's
so that's one
interested, and then
instance.
Yeah.
invite
And then
them
there are
as
other
well as
instances where
the
people just have
area
sheds
offices.
that they
And
probably
David Adams
accidentally
might,
built on or something,
have
or
a
just
list
not
or
wanting to
Yeah,
something,
enforce
he
it.
you know.
might.
But I
legal
agree,
period.
I mean,
Well,
who
some of
knows
the
together,
sheds may have
it
been
makes
out there,
sense.
or
Yeah.
fences may have been there 50
And
years.
then,
And we just don't wanna talk to each
I would
individual
say
and.
for the multifamily.
we have to
area,
figure out how we do it,
That's something
and then which is
that
what
the
we were
community
just
development
discussing.
committee needs to be on.
Yeah.
So how do you
That
go in
just
and
needs to
survey
be,
it? How do you
know,
go onto that
um,
person's property?
Can't you just ask them?
Can that be bundled
Well, I
together?
guess maybe you could ask a person, but
I mean, it
if
could
they know
be-
what you're up
I
to,
just
they're
don't-
not
that
gonna
one I
let you
don't
come
think
in
it's quite as necessary
and
because
survey it.
part of the
I
real
wouldn't
estate
think, would
agent
you?
meeting
So it's
is
the,
to
yeah, sure.
kind of come up
If
with
I
some
found out I
ideas
was
to get,
possibly breaking the law,
there's
I'd
gonna
like
be
to know
stuff.
about it.
Right.
whereas
Sure.
with the multifamily,
I don't
it's
wanna be
kind of,
breaking the laws
this is
and-
what we
Yeah,
do.
there might be
You
know,
more
that's-
hands-on
yeah.
So like I say, in
enforcement
some
on
ca-
their property.
in some
There's
cases,
two
the
different
property sold,
issues
so the
that
person that did it originally,
landlords, it's
those
like,
people
here, this
bought the
is-
property.
Yeah.
This is
We're
what we're
just
doing.
calling it out.
And whereas the real
It's
estate
burned
agents,
down. I mean,
we
it's-
want more of a
Is
dialogue.
this where the
to
word variance
create
comes?
something,
No,
No.
I mean, it's working with
That's a
them.
whole different
Yeah.
thing. So it's mainly an enforcing.
and
thing,
not
things
saying that we
already
don't
happen.
wanna work with landlords,
What
but
would you
just the
guess?
general
1,
thing.
10,
Oh,
100?
right.
I don't
But I
know.
don't think they'd expect.
And without going out into the
I'll be lucky
woods,
if we even get into here, but I think someone that